Thank you for joining us for this episode. Today, we're joined by Dr. Mila Yusifova, and we're going to be speaking about dry eye and telling your patients to stop drinking alcohol on the OI Show. Welcome back to the Optometric Insights Show. We are so excited to have Dr. Mila Yusifova hanging out with us today. And Mila, it's awesome to get to chat with you. Tell us a little bit about you, where you practice, and what you do.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you. So I practice in Portland, Oregon. I started it was cold start practice in 2013. So we're about to celebrate our
Happy birthday.
thank you, 10-year anniversary. It's big. I don't even know how that happened. It seems like it was just yesterday that we were having our grand opening. But yeah, I specialize in dry eye. That's been my passion from day one of opening the practice. And really early on, I was frustrated that our dry eye patients were not giving enough options for treatment. So I decided to invest into advanced treatments and doing a lot of really figuring out the root causes of dry eye. So that's over the years, that's really evolved, and that's pretty much all I do. We do a lot of your traditional thermal treatments. We do lipoflow, radiofrequency, MIBA we've had IPL for 5-6 years. We do the newest for the last few years. For 3 years, we've been doing in-office blood draws and making autologous serum and PRP eye drops for patients. So my colleagues, they do 1 hour glasses. I do 1 hour eye drops. So it's really nice for patients to just wait around, get lunch, and come back and have their drops ready. So that's been convenient. But I also have, in the last a few years ago, I decided to go back to school to study nutrition. This is master's in nutrition and graduate level degree. That was while I was in it. I'm done with the classroom and I took the board exam. And while I was going through it, I was like, man, I can't believe I'm back in school studying for exams and all of that. But really, where the passion or the need for that came from taking care of my advanced or severe dry eye patients that had comorbidities, they had autoimmune problems, and we would do a lot of the advanced treatments with biologics and light treatments and thermal treatments, but they would need more. What else, can I do? Patients were like, what can I eat? What can I not eat? What are are there, as we know, with rosacea, for example, there's so many, it's definitely gut skin axis, right? So there's big correlation. A lot of these patients have gut problems. So then, I used to just kind of recommend general, eat healthy, drink plenty of water, don't eat inflammatory foods. And then I asked myself, like, do I really know what that means? Do I really know what is that? What kind of diet is that? If somebody's asking, recipes or certain things, I just didn't have the knowledge. So that was the reason why I decided to go back to school and really learn nutrition at a molecular level.
That's awesome. I was in an appointment with my naturopath just a month ago or so, and she said, I want you to be thinking about food as your medicine, right? And I don't think that we do a great job as that in America, is that we, think about medicine as our medicine, right? Who cares? The food is separate. Give me the medicine and make me better. And I think there's this return to it. And those of us who have been treating dry eye patients for a long time, and even in things like uveitis, we're like, hey, there is something going on here that we can, change the patient's gut biome and change how all that, and it affects their eyes. And who's to think that we shouldn't do that in dry eye? I commend you, but why go back to school and do a master's? You're a lifelong learner. I've admired you for all the things that you've learned over the years, right? those of us, you've learned more out of school than you did in optometry school about
Yeah.
dry eye and
Yeah.
so forth. Why didn't you just like dig into the literature? Why a master's degree? I
Well,
commend you. I commend
yeah,
you.
yeah. So it was actually to clarify, it's a master's. So it is a master's program, but as ODs, we don't have to go through the master's to get your master's to be able to basically sit in for this exam to be a certified nutrition specialist. So that's kind of a nice way for us. If somebody who wanted to be CNS certified nutrition specialist, they do have to get their master's in nutrition first. But for us, because we are ODs, we are doctors, we actually can basically do half of that. And
Mm,
then because we have the knowledge of biochemistry, we took organic chemistry, we understand a lot of this already. So we're able to basically fill in the blanks, and because we didn't really learn a lot of nutrition in school. Nothing. I mean, even now I get a
okay.
lot of a
You're
lot
trying
of
to convince me that it's easy. That's not, you're not
it's
gonna, it
no,
still was
it
really
was
hard. It
it was
was really hard.
it was very hard. It was, I mean, the um the level of education is obviously, I mean, the school I went to, it's a naturopathic school, basically, that the classes were provided from this naturopathic school. So obviously very, a lot of work. It took a lot of work, but the reason why is because you're right. I think as ODs, we have the knowledge. We have, we learned about physiology, anatomy, and biochemistry. We can sort of put things together, but science of nutrition is so deep. And the more I learn, the more I feel like I don't know anything. It's there's a lot, and things that we were recommending before. I learned that, what, I should be looking at their blood work. I should be looking at their microbiome, even some probiotics. Let's say somebody recommends probiotics. I took this whole course on microbiome, and there are so many. First of all, there are a lot of probiotics that don't work, and there also, you could be taking something with a strain of bacteria that you don't need. In fact, it may be causing more harm than helping. So that's why I went back to school, because again, before I'd be like, oh, I'm putting a doxycycline, take some probiotics. It was sort of a general recommendation. Now I'm like, well, let me do a gut test, possibly, and look at your microbiome, see what's missing, and really give you a more of a personalized recommendation based on what kind of bacteria. Maybe you have too much of this and not enough of this, and really have like a smart personalized approach versus just general, like, just eat your probiotics or take your probiotics.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I can't do, I'm not intending to go and get my master's. And so I need to learn from you. So I see dry eye patients like you do.
Mm-hmm.
Give me some generalizations. And I
Yeah,
know that's difficult because
yeah,
you're an expert and you do blood work and you do. So help me help my patients based on all the things that you've learned. So break it down a little bit for
yeah.
me. What have you learned from before you went to all this classwork? And I know you've got a program, which I'm hoping you'll share with us at the end a little bit about how we can learn more, but break it down
Yes,
a little bit for us.
yes. I think the main thing we have to recognize, or we have to start the conversation with patients, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of times
True.
patients say, "Wow, you're the only, you're the first doctor who's asked me, do I have gas, or do I have,
Mm,
bloating or issues with my gut?" And a lot of times, these patients, especially your rosacea patients, that's where I would start with rosacea. Suspect, ask them, do you have allergies? If if they develop allergies as adults, if their allergy symptoms getting worse from year to year, and now they're developing food intolerances, they say, oh, I can't eat certain foods anymore. I used to be able to eat them and I can't. So those are the clues for us that there is a problem with their gut health. There's dysbiosis. That's the imbalance of the gut microbes. So when you have too much of the bad bugs, they cause inflammation. You can develop leaky gut, and that basically causes systemic inflammation. And one of the problems. There's others, but and that's where just asking the questions. Do you have these things? Do you feel like you have more? And patients with rosacea, if they also have eczema, other inflammatory psoriasis, other inflammatory conditions of the skin, then you know that something's going on with the gut. So some doctors, some optometrists will want to have the conversation. Others will recognize and say, something's up with your gut. You should work with a functional medicine doctor or somebody who, specializes in gut health and all that. Maybe they want to do a test. Maybe they want to do some sort of a, gut healing protocol. And that means, elimination diet or doing some dietary changes, and then also taking specific supplements to heal the gut lining, and then taking the appropriate probiotics to repopulate the microbiome. So there's different approaches, different levels, right? So it's either just recognizing and saying, I think there's something else is going on, not just the eye problem, and then pairing or having them find like a naturopathic doctor like you work with one. Or if you wanted to start doing it yourself, there are ways to kind of learn on your own if you didn't want to go back to school. I am part of, or I'm a member of Ocular Wellness, Ocular Wellness and Nutrition Society. And that's kind of how I started this whole journey. I've been a member since I graduated, and they would have these, webinars, they would have meetings, and they would have, again, the focus is nutrition and wellness. That's the place to start. So if you're interested to do it yourself and kind of attending as many of these meetings and learning about certain, nutritional protocols or supplements and things like that. And then hopefully more and more ODs will get into it. So that way we can kind of, I'm hoping that the outline I submitted for the academy gets accepted, and I'll present there on the microbiome and eye health. And, like you mentioned uveitis, that's one of the things we now know that there's a link. So patients with uveitis, but also macular degeneration, glaucoma, dry eye. There's been studies showing that there's different types of dysbiosis. So somebody with dry eye will have a certain imbalance of the microbes versus somebody with macular degeneration, but they are consistent. So patients with macular degeneration will have similar imbalance, and all different. So we have to start thinking about that and really incorporating that early on, right? Obviously, like what you said earlier, our food either causes or cures disease. We have to think of food as medicine, and everything you put in your mouth, it either will cause inflammation or it will suppress inflammation. It'll be anti-inflammatory. So as we know, root cause of all disease is inflammation, including dry eye. We're always treating inflammation, but everything we're doing is a Band-Aid. Even, when we're thinking about IPL, we think we're treating root cause. It's a Band-Aid. It all starts in the gut. If we're not healing the gut, we're just going in circles. And that's why I started to really, dig deep.
I like what you're saying here, but I've solved all these issues because I prescribe omega-3s to my patients, and then that helps inflammation, right? So that should be good for most everybody. That's the real solution, is just to get a better omega-3, and if it's not working, it's probably because it's not the right one, right? I mean, doesn't that solve everything?
I wish it was that easy. Yes, I think omegas. I love omega-3s. I think omega-3s are a good start, and that's kind of what you're saying. I know you're joking, but at the same time, as optometrists, we've already been in this whole nutrition sort of discussion, right? With the AREDs, we talk about carotenoids, we talk about those supplements, but also omega-3s. Like all the doctors, I mean, definitely dry eye specialists, but really a lot of optometrists already recommend omega-3s, already talk about importance of and how it has anti-inflammatory properties. So it's not really that different or shocking or unexpected for optometrists to bring nutritional conversations to their patients, have that as their handout, like in their recommendations. You're recommending eye drops, warm compresses, and then omega-3s, but also have some dietary recommendations. Maybe for your rosacea patients, tell them what are the triggers. If they're really drinking red wine every single night, flaring up their rosacea, they're coming back like, oh, nothing is working. Like, ask about what are you eating? What's your breakfast, lunch, and dinner like? You'll find out a lot
Mm-hmm.
that way.
So that's a great example. So red wine for rosacea patients may not be the best thing. Let's think the comorbidity of rosacea and dry eye continues to go up. And what I think the biggest thing since I've been doing IPL, and maybe you would agree, is I didn't think that many people had rosacea. And it's a way higher percentage, and even maybe subclinical rosacea, where we wouldn't look at them and say, oh, you have rosacea, but it's way more common than we think. And so patients don't think rosacea and think I need to have dietary restrictions because of that. Let's talk a little bit about a rosacea patients and common things that they may be eating or nutritionally be deficient in, that we could either tell them do less of this or do more of this. Do you have any recommendations that you can
Yeah.
flat out say? Red wine being a great example.
Yes. Absolutely. So I think you're so right on that. I used to not recognize or think rosacea was a big issue. Everybody has rosacea, especially in the Pacific Northwest, right? So we kind of generally recognize it in Caucasian race. However, you will see it. Like you said, in subclinical. I've seen it in Hispanics. I've seen it in Native Americans. I've seen it in Asians. I've seen in really all races, and it is much more common. Or I haven't seen or recognized it, and I've treated with thermal treatment. Let's say it was MGD, and the patient didn't respond, but then I do IPL, and they would actually respond to that. So then again, you're not seeing that visible telangiectasia, but it is subclinical, and then it does respond well to IPL. So for these patients, again, there are not to if I won't go too deep into the whole like microbiome, because that's another like our talk on really kind of looking into that, because a lot of these patients do have a really inflamed gut, and they have like maybe small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIBO, however you want to see it. That's a common problem where you'd have to kind of almost like kill the bad bugs before you repopulate with the good bugs. So that's, I do sort of protocols with that. But in general, foods, right? So foods, we know that in rosacea, high histamine foods. So anything fermented, which is high histamine, can be triggers. So those are, again, your wines, red wine especially, but also your any really wine and beer and things like that. Sometimes even certain like dry fruit can be high histamine. So again, I had a patient, she's like, that's all I eat. I don't like fresh fruit. And so some of the, again, even like avocado and spinach could be high in that category, which I don't always just say to cut out those things. I sort of start with the problematic ones. Like we know alcohol also has other problems. Obviously, alcohol itself is dehydrating, but also inflammatory. So I sort of cut out the bad stuff first. I don't just tell them like, go nuts and, don't eat avocados. So, but then you kind of go step by step. But as a general rule, the three things I kind of say: any processed foods will cause inflammation. So this is not just for rosacea patients, but
right.
anything that you eat out of a package or bags, those are highly processed. They usually have a lot of preservatives. They're just, there's no nutritional values in them. So I say just eat whole foods first. That's number one. Number two is, simple carbs and sugars. Those we all know cause inflammation. They're feeding our bad bugs. Those are the ones that cause problems. So you want to starve those bugs, and you want to, increase more whole foods that have high fiber. So those are all your vegetables essentially, and your fruit. And dairy tends to be also inflammatory for rosacea patients. So it's not the lactose that's the problem. It's casein, which is a protein, inflammatory protein found in dairy. So that's when patients say, no, don't take my cheese away. They get pretty disappointed with that. So you have to also kind of read your patient, right? So some patients say, I'm ready to do anything. Just give me a protocol, I'll follow it. And others will say, no, just tell me one thing to take out, and I'll start with the, worst thing. That would be alcohol. But then kind of go down the list, and, sugars and, things like that. So those, and then gluten is an interesting one.
Yeah.
That's the last sort of like, again, depending on the patient, if they want to do it all, I would do, no dairy, no sugar, and no gluten. Because a lot of these patients that have, it's not necessarily that they have celiac or gluten intolerance, but if they have a, leaky gut, let's say that's a term, right? That you're probably familiar with. If they have leaky gut, then they are not breaking down, or they're not really metabolizing gluten well enough, and then gluten kind of stays in this whole protein state, and that's what causes inflammation. So it's not that you're gluten intolerant or gluten, you have celiac. It's that it's a secondary problem. So a lot of these patients, if they go through a protocol and heal the gut, they can eat gluten, here and there. Like I just say, over time, that can still cause problems. So again, it's a personalized, approach. But in general, those would be my three kind of like, what are the three things I have patients remove are sugar, dairy, and gluten. And I guess processed foods, that would be the big one.
There's this movement around this Whole30 thing, right? So that's getting rid of all of those sort of things. Is that, if you had a patient who was really, really focused on, hey, what can I do to kind of, at least try some of this? Is that, something that is popular enough that if an optometrist is like, hey, I think there's a good dietary problem here, let's do this for a month, would we yield some information from that?
Yes, I think Whole30 is a really nice place to start. For there's a lot of information out there for it, and patients that can easily access the recipes and protocol and kind of support and things like that. But again, it's sort of like not a personalized approach, which is fine. Again, for ODs that kind of need somewhere to start, I think that's a good place to start. Which is why maybe this is a good time to plug that program.
Please, yes.
I came up actually with another my colleague Celia Futch. I met her in this nutrition program. Her and I were interns in the program where we had to present a lot of cases once a month, clinical cases on nutrition and things like that. And a lot of our cases were pretty much on dry eye. So then after the program, we're like, why don't we, or after this training, we decided, well, we're doing a lot of this on one-on-one, these nutritional approaches or recommendations with our patients. Why don't we come up with a program that we can share not only with our patients and those who are seeking this information, but with our colleagues. Again, our colleagues, optometrists who want to give more of a targeted dry eye nutrition recommendations. That's where this is. That's what this program. It's an online 10-week program that you can register your patients, and they basically go through it. And we have recipes. We have information on the link between nutrition and dry eye, the gut microbiome, on inflammation. And also on, we have supplements, so specific supplements on healing the gut and reducing inflammation. and support. That's the biggest thing. So what you mentioned about Whole30, a lot of times, and I used to do this before I started studying nutrition, patients would not know where to go. It's almost like telling them, go use artificial tears, right? So even if you tell them, they may not know where to go, what to get. And what this program would do is that you not only have a structure, each week you have to do certain things, but you also have accountability. So you're in this cohort, with other dry eye sufferers, and they are going through this program with you. So there's a forum so they can share ideas, talk about treatments, talk about, what's working, what's not. And then they have live sessions with me and Dr. Fudge. So we have actual, 2 ODs and nutritionists who are there to answer questions about nutrition and eyes and things like that. So that's kind of why this program was developed, to give patients something tangible, right? Something that actually you can prescribe it or recommend it, and they go through it with the support of others, but also the doctors on the program.
Where can people find more information about this?
So the website is dryeye-nutrition.com.
Yeah, and we'll have information in the show notes on that as well. So you can find that below if you are interested in knowing more. Oh, this is awesome. I mean, we went probably 10, 15, 20 minutes longer than maybe we planned, but this was so interesting, such great information. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you for inviting me. This is an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for joining us for this episode of the OI Show. Make sure to like and subscribe. Please share this podcast or other podcasts with people that you know so they can get this great information and become better doctors. We'll see you next time on the OI Show.